Some countries are rich and others are poor. Let me explain. You're poor because you have no money, at least not enough money to take care of your basic needs. You have no money because you have no source of income. A source of income for most of us is a job, isn't it? Where do jobs come from? Businesses. Then don't you think that we should make it easy for people to start and run businesses? This is not going to end well because it happens to be the most over-regulated region in the world where the entrepreneurs have the most chains around their necks in the form of regulations and rules and laws.
Thank you all for coming tonight and coming to see our current speaker. I would like to also thank the Academy on Capitalism for helping to make this event possible, and the College of Business and Management at UIS for hosting this event and making it possible as well. So I'm very thankful to UIS and the Academy. I always like thanking the Academy and for making this possible. Thank you. And our speaker tonight is Magatte Wade. She's an entrepreneur, speaker, and visionary leader in the fields of African entrepreneurship and innovation. Magatte has been named a Forbes 20 Youngest Power Women in Africa, a Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum at Davos, a TED Global Africa Fellow, and Leading Woman in Wellness Award winner by the Global Wellness Summit. Magatte has spoken at the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the Aspen Institute, the Clinton Global Initiative, Harvard, Oxford, Stanford, Yale, MIT, and the TED main stage. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, The Guardian, BBC, CNN, Fortune, and the Huffington Post. She's one of the most popular guests of all times on both Jordan Peterson and Lex Fridman's podcast, with over 10 million views. Her passion for the role of free markets in overcoming poverty and the power of enterprise to tackle social issues and promote entrepreneurial education make her a sought-after speaker and thought leader at major conferences, events, and universities around the world. Her book, The Heart of a Cheetah, How We Have Been Lied to About African Poverty and What That Means for Human Flourishing, is coming out very soon, and I've seen it. It's worth reading, and you're going to see why today when you hear what Magatte Wade has to say. Join me, please, in welcoming Magatte Wade to the stage.
Good evening, and thanks so much for having me coming tonight. Now, tell me the truth. Did they bribe you with food? Tell me the truth. Anyway, well, thank you so much to the Academy as well as to UIS. I really like your campus. It's a really nice campus. You know, I see a lot of them, but this one is very, very feels special. So I'm happy for you guys. Anyway, so tonight, you know, what I usually do is I'm just going to do one thing, which is just share my story. The goal, because as you'll see, for me, I used to come from a very different place intellectually than where I am today. And so maybe we just go into this and you'll understand why I'm here. So basically, my name is Magatte Wade. I was born in Senegal, west coast of Africa. Who here is from West Africa or has been? All right, guys. Thanks so much for coming. I really appreciate it. So born in Senegal, and right after being done with breastfeeding, my family decided to do what so many African families have done before them, and what so many African families, parents, are still doing to this day. What they did was, we have to leave. We have to leave to offer our child, to offer our family a better life. And so they left, and they became what we call economic migrants, people who left in search of a better life. And so for me, it meant that I was left behind with my grandmother, and to be, basically, and the best way to think about that time of my life between age 2 and 7 is think of me as a free range kid. So free range kid. I did not want to go to school. Grandma said, you don't have to go to school. I was just basically hanging out, having the best time of my life, and it was just rather amazing when you think of it. But then one day, this strange day came, and that day was all about I had to leave. My parents had, it looks like their immigration process has worked. Now they're going to be staying in Europe, And now I have to be going and meeting the rest of the family back in Europe. And for me, what it meant was, it was excruciating because my grandma literally is my everything. To this day, she's gone now, but grandma really, it was so hard for them to take me away from her. That day when I had to leave, she almost was naked because I was on the floor wrestling with everybody, pulling onto her skirt. I'm not going. And grandma almost lost the skirt, but they took me and I left. It was very, very traumatic. So I landed in Germany in the middle of the winter. I've never experienced what cold weather was, let alone snow. And you can only imagine that the trauma there as well. But before I left, my grandma said something to me. She said, Magatte, you're about to go to this place where most people are not going to look like you, where most people will not speak the language that you speak, and where most of the kids have been going to school when you never had gone to school. And she said, and she used her words so carefully, she said, I want for none of that to intimidate you. She said, you can be impressed for whatever you want, but not be intimidated. And she said, because, the fact that they're going to look different from you is just because they have a different skin color, but it is still skin of humans, and you're human. And the language they speak is still a language that humans speak. So if they speak it, you can speak it as well. And the fact that, going to school is what little humans do. You're a little human, you'll be just fine. And of course, I went to Germany, and of course, everything grandma said was true. So I figured what she said next is probably going to be true as well. Because what grandma said next was, and you will be able to do as well as they do, if not better. And grandma was right. Within 6 months, I was the best in my class, speaking a flawless German, and voila, right? So after a couple of years in Germany, my family decided to move to France. But the most important thing about my arrival in Germany was not meeting the two human beings that my parents had produced behind my back. That's really how it felt. I was like, wait, who are these people? They're your sisters. No, they're not. Yes, they are. You can imagine how much we had to all work on adjusting. This is also what happens to families like ours, where you have to go, and then life goes on, and then all of a sudden you have to reunite the families. But the most important thing that happened for me when I landed in Germany, the first question that popped into my little girl's brain, 7, it was, how come they have this and we don't? And really what I was talking about was simply, where I came from, when it was time to take a shower, basically, grandma takes a pot, gets a charcoal stove going, and this is not like where you're cheating with a chimney and, it goes faster when you're doing your barbecue. This is literally coal and some paper, and you lift it, and then you're like fanning this thing. It takes forever. And then finally, when the coals are red enough, then she puts the pot on it, and then we have to wait for it to get to boil. And once it's boiled, she takes it and puts it in a bigger bucket, mixes it with some more cold water, and then one of my cousins or my uncles takes it to the shower area, and there at last, almost 45 minutes later, I can take my shower. And here in Germany, mom says, Magatte, it's time for shower. I'm like, I am not getting butt naked in this cold. Where is the bucket? She's like, come on, you silly. Hop into the shower. Get into the shower, turn the knobs, water comes down. Like, wow, blink of a second. I was like, are you kidding me? Are you really kidding me? I've been cheated this whole time in my life. And then you go in the streets, it's paved everywhere, back home to this day. Most sandy roads, always, your feet, dusty, ashy, all of that stuff. And, the grocery stores, you have everything is like just nicely piled. Heat in the winter as well as AC in the summertime. And just basically what I was talking about as a 7-year-old girl was just like, how come life seems so easy over here? And back home, it's not. And really, I wanted to know why that was the case. And that question literally obsessed me. How come they have this and we don't? And eventually, because that question became a defining question of my life, the reason why I'm here talking to you, I had to know what it was, why. And eventually the question became, how come some countries like mine are poor while countries like America, France, Germany, Australia, New Zealand are rich. Why? And throughout the years, I've heard multiple people trying to tell me as to why that was the case. Some people with a very straight face to this day say that, darling, it's not your fault. It's because, blacks, especially, and brown people are just not that smart. It's the IQ theory. And that theory is very much alive. I have gone to conferences, very serious conferences, where you had panels literally debating this topic. I heard people say, it's just because malnutrition. If only you were better nourished. Others say, you don't have access to clean water. Others even think that if only we give us shoes, things will get better. I'm sure you've seen it. Tom's shoes, right? But none of it made sense. Absolutely none of it. Because if it was about any of that stuff, how come my parents, the same people here we're talking about, all of a sudden when they get to move to this other country, all of a sudden they're able to self-actualize. They're able to build amazing, beautiful lives. How come? And I'm looking here in this equation, the only change in the equation is actually the place they happen to be in or not. Because everything else is the same. The only difference is the place where they are. So now I'm thinking, this must have to do with the place where these people get to be or not to be. Now, what is the problem with this place? Keep thinking. Meanwhile, family moves from Germany to France. After business school in France, I decided that France was going to be too small for my ambitions, so I took off. And I went to the one country in the world where everybody was saying, as you work hard, you can really make something of yourself, aka the American dream. And so I came to America. And in America, the American dream I lived, for sure. I landed in Columbus, Indiana first, where I spent my first 9 months in the USA. I'm very grateful for that time in my life because that was the only opportunity I would ever have to experience really middle America, which to me is real America. Because then life would take me to San Francisco and then to New York, Brooklyn, and now my US base is Austin, Texas. What they all have in common is that these are not your typical American cities, right? They're not. And so I was very happy to be in Columbus, Indiana, where my friends were joking that there are more cows and churches than there are people, but I was very happy with that. Thank you very much. So anyway, so here I am, after 9 months in that company. It was a small family business who I had met during my last year of business school in France. We had an internship, an exchange program. And then they said that at some point they said, look, you completely outgrew the job we had for you. Now, we could be selfish and keep you with us because you really are part of our family, or we could do the right thing and let you go and see and become they really always believed in me and that I had a huge, gigantic future. That's really how they always saw me. And so Carol and Alden, they said, go to San Francisco, because back then, there was something going on. This French man that I came with to America, he wanted to marry me. He had, we were supposed to be, I accepted the engagement, but everybody around me knew this was the wrong thing to do for me. But, you don't tell me no or what to do, so leave me alone. And so she said, okay, we don't support the wedding, but if that's who you want to marry, we'll support you. But before that, can you do us a favor? Go to California and check out what's going on with that other man, Emmanuel, that you always talk about, also from France. And he was also in the US. I went, and like they say, I left my heart in San Francisco. So I went back, broke up the engagement, and went to the US, to San Francisco. What I did was really crazy back in the days because I had an H-1B visa, which was attached to your job that you had. And if you let go of a job, then you have to start all over again. And it's a really wild process if any of you had gone through that process. And so here I was starting over from nothing. But you know what? I've always had faith on my side, and I've always had confidence on my side. Because, you see, my grandma raising me, the first and best thing I think she did, the best gift my grandma gave me was the gift of believing in me and instilling in me a sense of confidence. So I said, I'm doing the right thing, go. And so within a week, I had already 3 job offers with H-1B sponsorship, and it worked. And there I was in Silicon Valley, living my best life. I was not even 25 years old yet, but I bought my first home in one of the most expensive zip codes in America. The reason why I say that is just to share with you how far I've gone and also what comes next. So this one day, there I was, driving down Big Sur, on Highway 1, one of the most beautiful places of the world. And Lord knows I've traveled, and so if I tell you it's beautiful, it is beautiful. Anyway, driving down that day, I was so proud of myself, of everything I was able to accomplish, and most importantly, I was so full of gratitude for all the people who have come in my life, for all the people who have contributed to helping me get to where I got to. Very proud, very happy, and very grateful. Super happy moment. And I was driving down and just listening to my favorite music from Houston Door. But all of a sudden, everything turned dark in my head. Everything. That was not a new feeling. You see, I grew up with that phenomenon. Oftentimes when I'm very happy, all of a sudden it turns really dark. But that day, something happened that was unusual. And what happened was, I was not able to do what I usually did to cope with that when that came. So what is it? You see, I grew up with stories of Senegalese people like me. Some of them probably younger than me when I moved to America. And on a regular basis, we're talking here almost each month. And now things have gotten worse because now it's every day. You get the news of a boat that didn't make it because my people, they packed themselves into little fishermen's boats trying to cross to Europe in search for a job. Remember the journey that my parents did? That's what they were doing, except my parents were able to do it under safe circumstances. They didn't have to do it that way. So these boats are not designed to do this type of crossing. And of course, it tips over. And right now, what do we end up with? All of these years, now we're talking about thousands of people. And in this case, my most entrepreneurial people, because we know that the people who leave are the most entrepreneurial. So my most entrepreneurial people, but any people really, it doesn't matter, entrepreneur or not, but they're right there lying at the bottom of the ocean, serving us fish food. I'm sorry for the graphic image, but that's really how I live it my every day. I spend so many nights talking to people, young women with babies. I try to talk to them out of doing that, out of getting into a boat to try to go to Europe for a job. Sometimes I talk to them all night long. And then in the morning, finally, I win over and she's like, okay, I won't go. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to try to build a life here. So those are the stories that I grew up with. And also other stories are, some people take air routes. And so somewhere above England, a body drops because somebody thought it would be a good idea to hide it to a landing gear of a plane. Or people would take land routes. And then they get caught in Libya. And you know what happens when you get caught in Libya? We're sold as slaves in the 21st century. It's not until CNN finally did a piece on it that people finally believed it. But I knew about this because I'm on some WhatsApp groups where on a regular basis we're being asked for money to free some of the people who are stuck there. So these are the stories that, haunt me. And so when I am finally happy, when I'm finally feeling good about myself, those stories come back. And then I usually would just throw them under the rug because how can I deal with this? Who am I to deal with this? What can I change to this? And when you're faced with a problem and there's nothing you can do about it, you try to presume that it doesn't exist to preserve yourself. And that's what I did for so many years. But that day, something special happened. That day, I was no longer able to reconcile the life of abundance that I was afforded with the life of scarcity that I had left back home. And it put my body in huge crisis. So much that I jerked as I was driving, and the steering wheel. Normally, I should have been dead by now. I should have been found dead in the ocean down below. But God did not have that in plan for me that day. And as soon as I could stop, I stopped, and I got out. I was so like, it was just like, and then it happened. I surrendered. The pain was so great, and it would not let me escape it. So the best thing I could do was to surrender, and surrender I did. And I said, God, from here on, I want that every breath I take, we put it to the service of Africa. I want to serve. I want that by the time I die, that this continent gets somewhere, or that at least I know we've taken the right shift, that we are now sailing towards prosperity. Because that's really what I'm after, prosperity for Africa, and the dignity that's going to come with it. So that was that. And funny enough, when you speak with God, and He knows that your heart is real, things start to happen. And a few months later, I was on my way back home, after 4 years of not going back, on my way back home with my husband, Oven, who since away passed away. But we went, and there I realized that the hibiscus beverage that I grew up with, Bissap, you may know it. Basically, if you're anybody, or you want to look like you're anybody, you drink soda, Western soda brands. Coke, Fanta, Pepsi, yeah, man, that's what the cool people do. That's what the people who made money do. That's what the people in the know do. And then the base of the pyramid, meaning the poor people, they consume the knockout brands from, these Western brands. Meanwhile, in the middle of it, our indigenous drinks are completely squeezed out. But you see, when they brought these trays to me, and I see all of these other brands, I see all of these other cultures, but I don't see my culture. So the tray is the world, the drinks on it are the cultures that seem to matter, and mine doesn't. It's not there. So not only my culture is disappearing, because this juice is very important to the Senegalese identity, it's our national drink. It means teranga. That's what us, the people of Senegal, are known for. Right? So when you don't have it here, it means my culture is disappearing. But along with that, women's livelihood, because they're the ones primarily who grow the hibiscus. And now if we don't drink hibiscus anymore, guess what? They're losing their livelihoods in the countryside, now leaving the countryside, going to the city side, trying to find jobs there. And there, many of them fall into, bad situation. When it's not prostitution, it can be like you're being made in some people's homes and being treated really badly and all of that nonsense, while you maybe left your baby back home doing exactly what my parents did, and the families are being separated and all of that nonsense. I was really upset when I saw that is what had happened behind my back during those 4 years. For 3 years, for 3 days, my body was shut down. Because I'm such a passionate person, you see, it works very well for me, but it also works very much against me. Because when I'm very happy, it's really good, but when I'm not happy, it's really bad. I'm still trying to manage that in my life, to be more in this state of equanimity, but it's not working so well so far, but I'm still working on it. So body was just like, I'm not getting up. I am pissed off at my people. I am disappointed at my people. I'm disappointed at the world. Why? This sucks. Eventually, at some point, my husband said, Magatte, this anger of yours, it's energy, except it's negative energy. See if you can turn it around into positive energy when it becomes inspiration, and you use that to find the solution forward. So that, together with my father's favorite teaching of criticize by creating, my dad would never want me to go to him with problems. He's like, do not come to me with your problems unless you have a solution to push forward. I don't need for the solution to be right, but I need to know that you're in solutions mode. I have no patience for pure complaints. So don't bring your complaints to me. So in a way, I was trained this way. And so at that moment, criticizing by creating meant start a business, build a brand, make it so hot in the US that by the time our people hear about it, they'll be like, oh my God, we have this what the cool Americans are drinking, so maybe we should get on it as well. And that's exactly what happened. Before we started, the hibiscus was literally dying. But now when you go back home, everybody has reinstalled it into their everyday lives. People are super proud now to serve it to you. And I think if you're a restaurant and you're not serving hibiscus, you might have people screaming at you. So you see how things kind of change. So that was my first company. And then I went on to build 2 more companies. I'm building my 3rd one right now. So the first beverage company, when Pepsi took over, it was time for me to move on and go do something else. And then I got into skincare because my whole thing has been very clear from the beginning. It's basically, that's why Forbes calls me the Senegalese, the woman that sells the Senegalese recipes to Americans, because that's literally what I do. I feel like in every aspect of my culture, you see, you could pretty much be looking at the world from the Africa viewpoint. Whether it's our fabrics, whether it's the ingredients that we use in our skincare regimen, whether it's even the skincare regimen in itself, even, everything, the hair tools, some of the chairs, some of the material, you could recreate an entire world Africa way, whatever that means, because we know there are thousands of different cultures on the continent, hundreds of different languages. It's a rich, rich, rich place, culturally speaking. But my point is exactly that. Can we build consumer brands that have embedded in them the very best of African cultures and bring that to a world that has no idea what it looks like, but clearly is looking for it? Because the first company, when we started it, I raised more than $32.5 million. We were the first company started by an African that has done so well. But it opened the door for so many, but the biggest door was the door in their brains. Because when I started, people were laughing at me saying, oh, Magatte, with your fancy education, you're selling what, flower juice? And I'm like, yeah. And they were all laughing at me. I'm like, well, we'll see who's going to laugh last. And I think I ended up laughing last. So, but the part of the story that's here very important is, it is during that time that I found my answer. Do you remember my answer? Why are they poor? Why are we poor and why are we rich? So you see, when I built my first company, and they're all built the same way, by the way, because we manufacture in Africa and we sell in the US. My current brand, it's manufactured completely in Africa, in Senegal, my home country, and it's sold in the US at places like Whole Foods Market. You guys know Whole Foods Market, and places like that. So, and we sell also, we have sold at Nordstrom, places like that. So the way then I do that is that we have 2 sister companies, one usually in Africa and the other one in the US. The one in Africa is primarily the supply chain, it's manufacturing, it's all of that side of the business. And the one in America is usually R&D, sales and marketing, that side of the business. And so when I started my first company, this is Senegal. When you start a business, you have to register your business, right? You cannot just be like, hey, my name is Magatte, give me an investment and put it in my name, I'll put it in my bank. No, you have to have a real business so that it becomes a vehicle. So you have to register your business. Here in Senegal, took me, back then, was in 2003, took me almost 2 years to register the business legally. Over here in America, 20 minutes. Over here in Senegal, I had to have a few $1,000s in my name in order to open a bank account. Over here, $20. Over here, my employees, it's basically, before I can employ you, what's your name? Yes. Avni? Okay. So Avni over here, I meet her. I think she's going to be great working with in our lab, making the organic skincare products we make. So I say, Avni, great, let's meet. And Avni, I don't even care about your degree, but she tells me she has a PhD in German, which is worthless for what we need to do. But Avni, I think, is going to be a great lab technician, though. And okay, Avni, in Senegal, for you and me to work together, piece of contract, signed in 3 sets. Then I have to get into my car or take a little, a little transportation service, By the way, English is only my fourth language, guys. So sometimes it seems like I'm looking for my words or messing up the words. That's what it is. So be patient. So I get in this car and I have to drive to the capital city or the region of, the capital of a region, because you have to go to this government office called Inspection du Travail, Labor Inspection Office. So what happens when I go there, I take my little, things with me, and I go there. I had to drive there because they don't answer emails. They don't care about emails. Doesn't matter that we're 2023. No emails. You have to go in person. So you spend 2 hours on these bad roads trying to get there. Once you get there, it's already, you try to be the first one there so you don't waste time. So 8 o'clock, we're there. But guess what? The government agent, nowhere to be seen. We wait 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11:30. He's running all of his little errands, wherever, something, whatever. But I'm not going to complain, because if I do, he can really stick it to me, You know how that is with sometimes when you're trapped with some people. And so he comes, and then we give him this thing, and then he's like, well, where's Agnes' house certificate? I'm like, wait, what? Yeah, we did that. Then I'm like, my CPA, because by the way, you have to hire a CPA because the laws are so complicated that if you don't hire a CPA, you're probably going to make mistakes. And if you make mistakes, the state comes after you and harasses you at some point. So you have to have a CPA, which normally here, remember this country here? I don't need a CPA, right? But here, and I call my guy, and I'm like, I'm at the office, they're asking me for this. And he's like, really? I've never heard of that before. And he's like, give me the guy. And so I give him the phone, and the other guy's like, well, it's really in the law. And the other guy says, well, I've never seen it. And he said, because you operate in the capital city, this is more of a regional area. And you know what? We have time. The people in the capital city, there's so much volume that they just don't apply what the law normally says. But here, we have time. So then, they can't do anything for me that day because I have to get your certificate. So then I drive back, 2 more hours of my life spent. By the now, it's a whole day. I come back, Avni, I need you to go to your doctor and bring a certificate. So you go to your doctor. The doctor doesn't even look at you, doesn't even know what you wore that day. And basically, he's just signing the thing. Basically, this is a shake-off. Basically, they're making money out of this because you have to pay him to get that certificate. Come back to me, bring it to me. I go again. And then I go, and then he's like, well, Avni has a PhD in German. So what you're proposing to pay her just doesn't work. She should be paid 5 times more because she's got a PhD in German. I'm like, and what do I care about the freaking PhD in German? Well, that's what the law says. So you know what I do? I come back and I say, Avni, sorry, I can't hire you. You go back home and you stay. But Avni is going to be the girl calling me and saying, you know what? Tomorrow I'm getting on a boat because I need to go get a job. I need to go get a job somewhere else because here looks like my degree works against me given how the contract is done. But let's say they're happy with everything they see. By the way, this government office have never been to our little village. He doesn't even know what the village looks like. Do you think he knows what it is to run a company? No. Does he even know what my company looks like or what we have to do? No. Nothing. But he's the one who gets to decide everything. Over here, I want to hire Avni. Avni, hey, great, let's do a deal. Write this up, you sign, I sign, put it in your drawer, put it in my drawer, we're done. So I ask you, and this is like that about everything, by the way. Every single thing regarding the life of a business. So I will ask you people, this place where I told you about the thousands of dollars you need, 2 years to register your business, you have to go through the government office to hire Avni. And by the way, once you hired Avni, good luck getting rid of her, even if she's stealing from you. And if you want to fire her one day, from the moment you hire her, you have to start building a case because that's the only way you might be able to get rid of her when the time comes. Can you imagine that type of environment? So anyway, so I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to start a business. Do you start it over here, where we have the thousands of dollars needed and everything? Or do you start it over here? So who is going to start it where you have to have thousands of dollars, 2 years, all of that stuff? Who would pick that place to build their business? I give you 1 more second to make up your mind. So I see no hands up. Who would build their business in this other country? Pretty much everybody. So what you just did here my friends, is the reason why some countries are rich and others are poor. Let me explain. You're poor because you have no money, at least not enough money to take care of your basic needs. You have no money because you have no source of income. A source of income for most of us is a job, isn't it? Where do jobs come from? Business. Yeah. Businesses. Then don't you think that we should make it easy for people to start and run businesses? I think we should. And when you look at all the economic indexes that measure this, there are economic index after economic index. The one you might hear of the most is the Doing Business Index of the World Bank. It measures how hard or easy it is to start and run a business anywhere in the world. And systematically, the results are showing exactly what it is that I'm living through as an entrepreneur doing business on the ground. It is like swimming through molasses to do business in African nations. And what they show it is that basically it is harder to do business in almost anywhere in sub-Saharan Africa than it is anywhere in, say, places like Scandinavia. At first, I thought it is so hard to do business because we're poor. And it is so easy to do business over here because we're rich. Just to come to understand, no. It's because they make it hard to do business that we're poor. And it's because here they made it easy to do business that they're rich. And there, finally, at last, I had my answer. Africa is the poorest region in the world to this day, despite its immense riches, starting with what's underneath our soil and what's above our soil. And I talk here about our people. The youngest population region in the world, 19 years of average. By 2050, 1 out of every 4 people walking this earth will be African. Despite that, we're still the poorest region in the world. This is not going to end well. And so Africa, I discovered, is the poorest region in the world because it happens to be the most over-regulated region in the world. It is the region in the world where the entrepreneurs have the least freedom to enterprise, where the entrepreneurs have the most chains around their necks in the form of regulations and rules and laws. Because everything I talk to you about is due to the law. Even the banks that make it so hard for you to open a bank account, there's a reason why so many Africans don't have a bank account. It's because even the banking laws are some of the most stringent in the world. Oftentimes they say it's the name of KYC, know your customer rules and laws and regulations, and it is just ruining our lives day in and day out. Yet, when I ask a primarily non-African group of people why Africa is why Africa is the poorest region in the world, if that group on top of that happens to be, they'll come up, you'll hear from anywhere to, yeah, it's because Africa has been colonized. Yeah, it's because the racism. Yeah, it's because we're stealing resources. Yeah, it's because Africans are stupid. Yeah, it's because Africans are killing each other all the time. Yeah, it's because Africans are lazy. I hear all of that. And then when I talk to the Africans as well, I guess I hear the same thing, minus the lazy and IQ and all of that, but pretty much the same usual suspects. And do you know what I don't hear? I don't hear anyone talking to me about the fact that Africa is the region where entrepreneurs enjoy the least economic freedom, meaning the freedom to enterprise. No one brings that up. No one. How do you expect us to get there if we got the wrong diagnosis? How do you expect me to get there when I ask why are we here, people are pointing to the symptoms and making the symptoms look like there's a cause? We've got a serious problem here. Meanwhile, people are packing themselves into boats and trying to migrate. Did you hear about the story in Lampedusa, small tiny island in the south of Italy? Just a couple of weeks ago, the crisis is still going on. I mean, the immigration crisis is wild in Europe right now. Just like in the US, it is going on as well. And by the way, some brothers and sisters are actually now going through Nicaragua, in their case, to come to America right now. That's a different route they're taking. And then when they arrive to these countries, whether it's in Europe or in the American corridor, whether it's Canada or the US, then what do I have? Everybody and their mothers fighting each other. People on the left saying, open the borders, let everybody in, sanctuary cities. And people on the right being like, build the wall, kick them out. And I look at both sides and I'm saying, do you really care? Do you really care? Because if you cared, this should not be the conversation we are having right now. If you really cared, the question we ask ourselves is, how do we help people stay home? That's the question we should be asking ourselves. Why are people leaving their home? And most importantly, how do we help make sure people can stay home? Because I tell you, anything you want. I know that from my parents, and I know that from all the people I know who migrated. And given a choice, 99.9% of these people would have preferred to stay home. It takes something extraordinary for people, a group of people, from one day to another to say, we're going to leave our country, we're going to leave our home, we're going to leave our culture, we're going to leave our family, we're going to leave our friends, we're going to leave everything that we know, we're going to leave our foods behind. I'm sorry, but I love my foods. We're going to leave everything behind and go. It takes something really, really wild. Yet I hear none of these sides talk about it. And the immigration crisis, both in Europe and in America, is tearing people apart. And none of these sides is being constructive about the issue. Because as long as it's like build the wall or bring them in sanctuary cities, no work is being done on how do we bring greater economic freedom, all of us, because everybody has a job in this. It's not just about the Africans or whatever, because, if the US is going to show up and come and give me foreign aid, I don't want your foreign aid, thank you very much. Your foreign aid takes me nowhere. Your foreign aid only creates a culture of dependency. It stifles, entrepreneurship on the ground, and also it's all about neo-colonization. Your foreign aid, please keep it. Goes nowhere because you're just incentivizing also our so-called leaders to, on top of that, fight to stay on power, because the trillions of dollars you're sending, a lot of it ends up in their pockets. So with your foreign aid, you even, you're basically fueling more of this crap. So keep your foreign aid. But if you want to work with me, though, you have a lot of leverage to work on making sure that maybe helping me bring greater economic freedom to our countries so our entrepreneurs are finally freed. The leash they have around their neck needs to go. Once you free them up, they do what entrepreneurs do everywhere. They go on, they build prosperity. They start companies, hire people, buy from some other fellow companies in the form of suppliers. They take care of the communities they're in. The whole 9 yards start to happen, and you start to have this thriving economy. And one day you look around, we are prosperous nations with a healthy middle class, and the world will stop looking at us the way they are. I believe that 80% of racism as we know it against Black people will vaporize in the air, poof in the air, the minute Africa, which is home to 90% of the representatives of a Black race, the minute that continent starts to be known for something else than what it is known for right now. My proof? The Chinese. The Chinese used to be as disrespected as African Black people are in the West. The minute the Chinese accomplish wealth, you may not like them if you want, but you certainly cannot not respect them. And in the end, that's all you're after, respect. And so, you see, the reason why I called my title, when I talk about the morality of capitalism, and now, yes, I use the word with you. Everything I described is about capitalism. Many people I know, when they hear the words like, oh my God, the dirty words, no. And I know that most of the time what you're thinking about is you're thinking about crony capitalism. Some of my friends call it crapitalism. That phenomenon where because you know somebody in government or because you have a right relationships, you get to build a business. But if you're nobody, no one, nowhere, you can't go anywhere, that's crony business. That's not capitalism. But oftentimes people reject capitalism, which is what we need, in the name of crony capitalism. And we have to be very careful with that. And I see it in America, where we are so spoiled. We're so spoiled. When I hear a kid telling me, oh, I'm all about socialism, I almost want to grab them with me, take them with me to Africa or to other places where we're practicing this beautiful philosophy that they think it is. And I will tell them, except you can't come back with me, because I know they won't even last a second. So guys, the reason why I'm here talking to you about all of this is because these ideas are so powerful. I hope that you saw how, for me, some people call it entrepreneurial capitalism. Some people call it the free market capitalism. Whatever you have to put in front of it to make it easy to understand, do whatever you need to do. But these ideas matter. They are the difference between life and death, literally. If we had enough of this back home, our entrepreneurs could have built prosperity, our nations would be rich, and people would not be in boats trying to go somewhere else, and they would not be dead right now at the bottom of the ocean. So life and death, literally. These ideas are also the difference between, obviously, poverty and prosperity. These ideas are also the difference between peace and war. We know that when two nations are doing business together, you're in a way in the same sack. If you try to mess with that boat, you both go down. So when two nations, when two sets of people, even if normally they hate each other because culturally whatever, when they're doing business with each other, it helps maintain the peace. And even if they're going to go to war, it takes them, they're going to think longer, harder before they go to war with one another. And above all, these ideas are about human dignity. But you get to stay alive. You get to live in prosperity. And most importantly, you get to be able to lift up your head and look at the other side and no longer hear people say that you are stupid, you are lazy, you are this, you are that. You can finally engage with them like this. And to me, that's the most important part of it, the human dignity that you get. So I'm here to make sure that you hear a different side of a story. I know that outside of these doors, the story you hear is very different. But those people who hold that story and have been putting that story out and holding on to it, I tell them, you're the ones who kept us poor. And I hold you accountable for this. So I'm sharing this with you so that you also can be allies in this. I know these are words that we like on campuses. You don't have to agree with everything I said, but I think it's important to know the other side of a story and engage in discussions about it, And so then you'll be like, okay, Magatte, I heard you. What do we do about this now? So the book is coming out in November, and it's called The Heart of a Cheetah. And really, it explains everything I talked about. You'll know why the cheetah, because I know the first question is like, why cheetah? You'll know. But most importantly, so 80% of the book is spent on sharing the diagnosis as to why Africa is the poorest region in the world, using just my story. I'm not there to do like economics 101 on you guys. So just walk you through my journey. And then 20% of the book is on solutions. So the solutions, the way I did it is I gave you a menu of solutions from the easiest one to the hardest one. But really, the biggest one that you have to engage with, ideally, is awareness building. You cannot work on something that you don't know about. So awareness building is number one, and the book is really there to help people build that awareness so you can talk to others intelligently, right? And beyond awareness, if you want to get into action, there I made it very easy. Like I said, seven things that you could do, from easiest to I'm giving my life to this. The easiest is going to be, soon we're launching this thing called Cheetah Made. It's too bad, I'm just remembering now, but I should have brought you some gifts you guys tonight. But maybe we'll arrange for, if you guys have your signups, that we can send you a box and then you can give people some of our products for free. So that we call it Cheetah Made. So Cheetah Made is this whole, it's going to be an e-commerce site where basically it's going to be all of these really cool African brands. So you have these cool socks that are called like sexy socks made of bamboo, really cool, like the designs are really awesome. So these are really basically what I see, what I know of Africa that you guys don't know of Africa. Really cool like products like some cocoa chips that have been toasted and with some ginger, pieces in it. You will have some jams that are made of hibiscus jam with some mint. Crazy wild. Remember when I told you could literally redesign your world, but from the African perspective? That's what Cheetah Made is. So really what it is products made in Africa by Africans. When you buy those products, unlike Tom's shoes, you are truly being part of a solution because you are supporting good jobs back in Africa, which means people have a job, they have the income. With the income, they go to take care of all the things they need. They don't need anybody's pity. They give you a great product. In exchange for that, they get their job and they go and they have a good life. So Cheetah Made is going to be the easiest thing that people can do. Go buy one of these cool products, support these African companies and great jobs. That's cool. All the way to e-governance, work that people can get involved in, or companies that you can get involved in. All the way to the most radical of all the solutions, which is the startup cities. Who here has heard of startup cities or chartered cities? Okay, so you're going to have to read the book and really learn about this. So basically, I told you that Africa is the poorest region in the world because it's the most overregulated region in the world. Then people are like, how do you solve that, man? How do you solve that? Especially with these leaders that don't care about anything or care about no one. This is how we're going to do it. Think about this whole thing, like here, it's the country, right? Right now, so it's the country. Imagine, you think about the piece of land, the land as your computer. It's the hardware. And then think about the laws and regulations that rule this area. And you see, the funny thing about laws and regulations is you don't see it. So it's really hard. What I'm trying to explain is really hard because you don't see it. But everything around us it's about laws and regulations, right? So then now think about the law and regulation that it runs on as the software that it runs on. And who wants to run on crappy software? No one, except that African nations are the ones who run on the crappiest software when it comes to business. So we have a worse business environment. So we got to change this. But the problem is the country is how it is now. Many people have entrenched interest. But people who have friends in government, all of that, they have these big businesses. They're doing so well. Everybody's great. And you have some of these jobs like the notaries. They're not going to let go. The notaries are like lawyers in Africa, in my part of Africa. They have to sign all your documents and everything. A signature could be, you may have to pay $100 per signature, and then you need maybe 15 signatures to get one document going through. It's a nightmare. So of course, do you know what you do? You pay a bribe. So you don't have to pay the stupid price, and you move on. And usually that's what they prefer anyway. They're like, they don't want your $100 that's going to go into the country's pocket. They want you to actually give in and pay them a bribe. But let's say you have to pay $100, then they're waiting for you $10. For you, it works. Only $10 instead of 100. For them, it goes straight into their pocket. Everybody wins. Go home. But if I want to change all of these laws, by the way, they're going to be the first one to fight you. Because if a law goes away, you have to pay $0. Why would you pay them $10? You see? So even the corruption, people are like, corruption. Even corruption is a result of bad laws. If we didn't have all of these stupid, crazy laws, I move on and I do my thing and they have nothing to stop me for. So it would be really hard to try to touch anything at this level, at the country level. You do that, everybody fights you, president might even be killed, who knows? So what you do instead is you say, okay, this is a country, but I'm going to go here where there is nobody. This is the countryside. They're all here. They're all here in the big city. That's where everything is happening. This is the countryside. Countryside, there's nothing. People are just like, whatever. They leave the old people and the kids there. And then everybody's here trying to make money and sending money back home, here, whatever. So you take this area here where, almost nobody living there. And here you work with the government to say, on this plot of land, ideally city size, we're going to create an area that has its own law and governance as well as its own custom regulatory systems. So right here, we're going to offer people an area where they come and they get to have the best business environment in the world, as good as Singapore or Denmark, or if not better. And we know that when you do that, capital and talent always follows. Why do I say that? Singapore, Dubai, Hong Kong, South Korea, Taiwan, the Asian tigers, basically. And then even communist China had to do the same thing. They did it in the form of the SEZs, special economic zones that happen to be among the most free market zones in the world. Even them, when they were tired of being poor and disrespected, they're like, we got to do something. Even them, communist China. That's what they did. They did Shenzhen, they did multiple different like that. And within a very short amount of time, 800 million Chinese lifted out of poverty just like that. Anytime we do this, do you know by the time you guys how long it takes for you to see the magic and the difference happen? 25 years. Within 10 years, you're starting to see things. 12 years, you're starting to see things. But by year 25, you're just like, yeah, day and night, we're done, we made it. It can happen in our lifetime, people. And so right now, I'm very happy to announce that a year ago, I started promoting these in Africa to specific governments. At first, I remember the first government, I was literally doing the dance, jumping through hoops, really trying to get them to accept this idea. But as of now, we have 4 nations now that are competing for us to go do that. And you see, the reason why I'm so bullish on Africa, the reason why I'm so full of hope for Africa, the reason why I believe in us so much, and I believe that not only are we going to forget the time for catching up, it's over, we're going to leapfrog. The reason why I feel this way, and I can talk to you about it with a straight face, is because we know the power of this. It's worked anywhere it's been tried. It doesn't matter which culture you start from. It doesn't matter if you've been colonized before or not colonized before. It doesn't matter how much trauma you carry. It doesn't matter any of that stuff. You put it in place. It's been a universal truth. The magic starts to happen. And then from there, if this one city happens, you see, we don't have for all of 54 African nations, 55 depending on how you count, to make it. All I need is one of these countries to get it, allow me to do one of these cities somewhere, it works, and then you know what happens. Everybody else copies. And then voila, my friends. Poverty, sayonara. Done. Now, as somebody told me, now people, if they're going to immigrate because of taste and not because of hunger. This stuff is powerful. And if you ever want to question, think about South Korea, North Korea. One decided to use this software, the other one decided to stay on the crappy software. You see the result. Eastern Germany, Western Germany back in the days. One decided to use this software, the other one decided not to use this software. You saw the result back then, before they reunited again. Singapore, before it had a very crappy software, decided to run this software. Singapore today is richer than its colonizer, Great Britain, GDP capita per GDP, sorry. And so on and so forth. Everywhere it's been tried. You can have people who are the same people, South Korea, North Korea, the same people, ending up in a very different place. Dubai, very different from West Germany. Yet, when they run the same software, they end up in the same place. So, what's not universal about this? What is not? So you can imagine that when I hear people saying, oh, we're never going to make it, we've been here because of colonialism. Colonialism happened, for sure. Was it horrible? You gotcha. Is it wrong? Yes. Has it set us back? Absolutely. But does it mean that we cannot move forward and become these prosperous nations that we deserve to be? I think, no, it shouldn't be in our way. But the sooner we understand this, and the sooner we will get there. And I promise you that even the black people who are in America complaining about racism, whatever, the minute Africa gets better, you will start to see people looking at you very differently, very differently. It's just what it is. And so we know what to do. So my job is, remember, criticize by creating. The heart of a cheetah. I told you I would not tell you why cheetah. But cheetah is because of my beloved professor, Ghanaian economist George Ayite, who is the one who really helped me look in this direction. He's the one who said, when he was surrounded by, he was living in a time where everybody was basically had brought into socialism as the way forward. And George said, this makes no sense, because I know it makes no sense, because socialism is against the markets. But everywhere in Africa, the markets are everywhere, and they're traditionally dominated by women. Something does not add up. And he's the one who actually helped me to understand that the socialism that we inherited actually is colonialism. These ideas are not African, because he went back to the Africans before slavery. Because for most of us, the story of Africa and Africa starts with slavery, moves on to colonialism, and to present day. But no one spent the time to think about who were we, how were we doing. And as it turns out, we were doing extremely well. And my goal is to see if we can, fight that arrested development. We lost time, that's for sure. We lost precious time, but we can leapfrog forward. So George, he said, the first time I saw him, we were at TED Global in Arusha, 2007. And I was one of 100 TED Fellows. We were the first original TED Fellows. They started with us. And I remember I was there, and George changed my life. I heard him talk, and everything he said made so much sense. And the talk was about cheetahs versus hippos. And he was saying that the hippos, all of these people we see in Africa that we complain about, the people who steal the money, all that stuff, and they're doing shady deals with the IMF, the World Bank, and all of that stuff, and the people who are making themselves fat with foreign aid and all that stuff and don't want things to change. And he said, and the cheetahs, and he talked to us. He said, we were cheetahs. Actually, he wrote the foreword for my book. And he said, you, the cheetahs, the fast runners of Africa, the ones you're here because you have a generation that waits for no one. We were pretty much a generation of entrepreneurs, the people, it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or not entrepreneur, but he said it's all about your mindset. You refuse to wait for anybody to come and save you. You are taking matters into your own hands. And he said, you are going to be the ones who change Africa. He said, the future of Africa lies on your back. So you cheetahs, run. Have the best run of your life. And if you've ever seen a cheetah run, they run in leaps and bounds. They don't even touch the earth. And he said, you're going to leapfrog everything. And I believed him. I still believe him. And so that's it. My job, especially with this book, is to gather the cheetahs everywhere they are. And then we will go for the run of our lives. And then I will die happy. So thank you.